You're watching Lost and Found Muscle Cars, and I'm your host, Wes Eisenschenk. In the last decade or more, I have found over 1,100 cars for people on my Facebook page, Lost Muscle Cars. And of those, I've had some great success stories. And today, we're going to talk about my top 5 Mopar muscle car finds. So, we're going to count them down from 5 to 1. Let's go. Number 5. 1964 Plymouth Race Hemi 426. I have a friend who's got a 64 Plymouth factory max wedge race car. This car was black with a red interior, but we were trying to find its history and we were struggling. I ended up getting Daryl Davis's awesome 64 booklet on the factory race cars from Plymouth. In 1964, Plymouth was dead set on killing the competition at the drag strip. And what they did is they orchestrated a run of 55 Plymouth Savoy two-door post cars. These cars had no back seat, 2 van seats, aluminum front ends, and the nasty 426 Hemi. Of those 55 cars, just 6 came with black with a red interior. Yes, I took 13 cars, black with red interior, all post cars, and dissected them all. While I did this, I stumbled across something amazing. One of the 64 Plymouth race cars that was sold in Dallas-Fort Worth had a serial number that I did some research on. And I found the car for sale in a classified ad on a Mopar board. Believe it or not, I reached out to the person who owns this car. And after all the research I've done, I discovered original photos of his 64 Plymouth. Better than that, you're seeing them here. And he's seeing them here for the first time ever. These photos right here are of his 64 Plymouth race car. After over 60 years, this car now has an identity, and I can put him in touch with that racer, Bill Brittain. And number 4, 1968 Hemi Dodge Charger RT. On July 19th, 2022, I had a guy named Jimmy reach out who was looking for his 68 Hemi Charger. This was a car he really enjoyed a lot of time with the car shows with back in the early 80s. He sold this car in 1984. It's been 40 years since Jimmy has seen his old Dodge Charger. And here is what Jimmy sent me in his message. You found my old green Hemi Roadrunner in Montana last year. I have another Hemi car I owned ages ago that I was wondering if you could help locate. It was a 1968 Charger RT with a 426 Hemi and a 4-speed. The color was yellow and it had a black vinyl top. With just 211 4-speed 68 Hemi Charger RTs built, it didn't take us long to get this car whittled down with some really good leads coming in on Lost Muscle Cars. One of those leads led us to California. It was in California where I met Colton. It was Colton's mother who owned this Charger, and guess what? It looked identical to how Jimmy sold it. I messaged him on Facebook Messenger, and I said, hey Colton, would you guys have any interest in learning the history of your super rare Hemi Charger? And here's what he said in return. Oh wow, I would love to hear about it. Yeah, if the former owner wanted to share some information, that would be awesome. What we're going to be doing now is connecting Colton and Jimmy, and we're going to piece together over 40 years of history into one connection. After I relayed this message back to Jimmy, he was ecstatic. He said, Wes, thank you for what you have done and what you continue to do. I appreciate all your efforts. And guess what, Jimmy? We appreciate you sending this post. Now, this car cracks my top 5 because of the rarity of 68 Hemi Charger RTs, and especially one with the numbers matching engine. Add in 40 years that this car has been lost, and it's a wonder how this thing survived the rough and tumble days of the 70s and 80s. Number 4 was this 68 Hemi Charger RT. Number 3, a 1969 Dodge Charger Daytona. Nathan Swartwood reached out to me regarding his grandpa's 69 Dodge Daytona that he said grandpa bought brand new. And he wrote, I'm looking for my grandpa's 69 Dodge Charger Daytona. It had a 440 motor and it was yellow when he sold it in Elm Creek, Nebraska. Last I searched, I think it ended up in Connecticut somewhere. I would love to just see the car. He sold it before they became valuable, and he regretted it every day since. Nathan sent this to me in July of 2023. And believe it or not, in just a day's time, we had a lead on this car. The awesome thing about something like a Charger Daytona is these cars are really well known in the hobby. And once you break a car down like this one with its color combination, you get leads, and you get leads quick. So I ended up getting in touch with a gentleman by the name of Colby. I gave him a phone call. I said, hey, Colby, we have this serial number from this kid who's looking for grandpa's old car. I read him the serial number, and he 100% confirmed that his Daytona was this kid's grandpa's car. Now listen to this. This guy bought this car new, grandpa did. And Colby now had full ownership history from dealership to current. After I got done chatting with Colby, the first thing I did is I reached back out to Nathan and told him we found grandpa's Daytona. And here's what he said. Thank you so much for helping me find the car. It feels unreal that I have been able to speak with the current owner. I appreciate everything you have done for me, and grandpa does too. Number 2, a 1969 Plymouth Roadrunner A12 446 barrel. Back in 2017, Gary Vogt put out an APB on Facebook looking for his old 69 Plymouth Roadrunner A12 that he bought brand new. Here's what Gary wrote. In January 1969, I ordered a Jamaica Blue Metallic A12 Roadrunner. The only options were bucket seats, the decor group, 3-speed wipers, factory tack, AM radio, and police handling package. I raced everything that pulled up alongside. Even a Boss 429 was no match. In 1 month in the summer of 1969, I got 9 tickets for speeding or exhibition driving. Well done, Gary! I ordered the car just a few days past my 18th birthday. At the time, I was still in high school, married, and was going to be a dad just 3 months later. I know what it's like to be young and dumb. I've looked for the car for years, but haven't had any luck finding it. Now, this message came to me on my 69 Roadrunner group, and immediately I got to work on finding Gary's old A12. The network out there for these A12s is amazing. There's groups out there that specialize just in this kind of car. And within days, I had a great lead from a gentleman down in New Mexico. In 2018, I was able to put Gary together with Ernie, the owner of this 69 A12 Roadrunner. It had been a long fight for Gary, but he was finally in touch. Unfortunately, Ernie passed away in 2020, and these cars ended up being moved out in an auction. And Gary still has the window sticker and broadcast sheet. So we are in hot pursuit of this B7 Jamaica Blue Roadrunner, and we are determined to get this paperwork back together with that car. And Gary will finally get to see a photo of his A12, the first time in almost 48 years. Number 1, a 1967 Hemi Plymouth GTX. Original owner Ro Green started his quest to find his 68 Plymouth GTX on the Mopar Lost and Found Vendor Services page on Facebook. Ro wrote, original owner seeking the whereabouts of my second new car, a 67 Hemi GTX, with the serial number included. Ro didn't get anywhere with this, and Ro found himself frustrated and posted again in January 2018. And here's what he said. One of my favorite pictures of my 67 Plymouth Hemi GTX. I really wish I could find this car and get it back. And then finally, Roe again posts in September 2018 on the 67 Plymouth Belvedere GTX owners page. Thanks for adding me to the group. While I don't currently own a 67 GTX, I wish I could find the one that I bought new in 67. It was my second new car and I loved it. I have all the original paperwork for the car. I just need the car. And on that post, Roe included 2 vintage photos and 3 pieces of paperwork for this Hemi GTX. This guy was beyond desperate. That's when people cued me in at Lost Muscle Cars and said, Wes, you need to help Roe. With a car of this caliber, a real deal 67 Hemi GTX with incredible paperwork, I made it my sole mission to find this car for Roe. And within 24 hours, we got the lead we needed. A gentleman by the name of Don Newman in Michigan owned Roe's old car. Oh my God. The car survived. Roe hadn't seen this car in 55 years. After connecting with Don, he was ecstatic. I mean crazy ecstatic to understand paperwork survived on this car. Even better, he wanted to meet Roe. He wanted to meet the guy who bought this 67 Plymouth GTX brand new. So those 2 guys got together. Roe drove to Don's place where the GTX was under restoration. Roe got to sit in his old GTX for the first time in over 55 years. An incredible, incredible story. But even cooler, and I mean even cooler, is Roe still had the original front license plate for this car. Take a look at Roe holding up the plate of his old 67 GTX. Now this, folks, is why a Plymouth GTX is #1 on this list. A Hemi, paperwork, an ecstatic current owner, and a seeker who is just privileged to see his old car and make a new friend in Don. That's it for us, folks. Lost and Found Muscle Cars, top 5 Mopar finds, only right here on this channel. Tell us what you want to see next. We already did Mustangs. We just did Mopars. What do you want for your next top 5? Comment below. I'll see you down the road.